Hello, Cheyenne. How you doing? So you've got your textiles, your geography, and your architecture, local infrastructure. I think it's smart. I do. I think you got plenty of inspiration here, and that's awesome. Plenty of inspiration. Um, this is a little underdeveloped in terms of where I'd like to see you right now. At this point, I think I would have liked to have seen you decide which visual direction you're going, and um, but that's not a bad thing though, because right now it looks like you're still trying to decide what logo to use. And I know I didn't help much because I said I don't like to direct and say use this one. I'd like you guys to make your own decisions. So um, and I'm stuck between this and this. But right now, the more I look at these, and I've been looking at them, um, I, I'm thinking this is your answer right here. I think this is. I mean, and you're free to go whatever direction you feel is the most has the most potential. But I'm really thinking this is a very unique logo. I'm liking it a lot. The one thing I would recommend is that I would increase your color palette on this definitely, and I'll get to that in 1 second. Plus, the pictograms are phenomenal. They're so great. I mean, they're really good. These are good too. These kind of remind me of the dolls that we used in art school. Remember the pose, different poses and sketch, learning how to draw anatomy. That's gonna remind me of those a little bit. So I love those, and I've got those on my desk too. So I was a big fan of those. I think this is out. I'm not sure that this river with the V is working out as effectively as it could. You're trying to mix too many things here, and I don't think an international audience is going to quite get it as readily as something like this. This piece right here, I would definitely fit the rings in. Increase your color palette, fit the rings in. I think that the rings can either be a color from your color palette or the color rings. A lot of times, the color harmony based on the rings themselves might not work out so well all the time with your logo. So feel free to select a different color, anything from your color palette to represent the rings. But I would definitely say two things. The logo itself, the mark itself is too big compared to the type. I would reduce that logo to something like that. And the rings, something like that. I think the mechanics are beautiful. Pictograms are great. I think the monochromatic pictograms are much more effective than the two-color pictograms. Okay, now you get the physical components, and this is where before I thought you were falling a little bit short, and I just want to mention something here. You got some great planning going on here. Really, really good planning. It looks like you're starting to plan some patterns and some other uses, and I think I think that's important, and I'm going to describe why in 1 second. I think it'll all make sense. But like I said, at first I thought you were a little underdeveloped here, but I'm seeing that this is just solid concept development, so that's okay. I would say that right now, I think the one thing that I can't tell if you're understanding this or not from I think you are because you've always been a good student and you've always understood, really, really had a good understanding of what goes on. And if you don't, you've always asked questions. So I'm guessing you are understanding this, but this is not about placing logo on different components. It's not that at all. It's about developing a branding package. It's about developing a identity system. Okay. And that's where I think a lot of this stuff is going to come into play. Okay. So you've got your logo, whichever logo you decide to go with, and then you want to start developing some secondary graphics, some supporting graphics, as it were. We talked about Fifth Element, right? The Fifth Element fits in here. I'm using this example for students. The Fifth Element for the Vancouver Olympics is all of these graphics. These are supporting graphics, secondary graphics, as it were. Okay, if you notice, very little of these are using the logo. So it's not about just placing logo on signs and placing logo on banners, placing logo on tickets, etc. It's about developing a supporting graphic system. A Fifth Element that will be remembered. I mean, I remember looking at Vancouver for the first time thinking, wow, all those swirls and different little illustrations and that's cool. And to me, that just really, really defines what a Fifth Element is. So I'm thinking that, whatever way you want to start developing your Fifth Element, let me show you. I want to get rid of those. I have so much stuff on my desktop all the time. Okay, I want to show you some examples. Brian has an example here, and I just want to show you where he's going. And then I want to show you some other students in final presentations. But Brian's got this. He's got these patterns where he's taken his inspiration and turned them into patterns. And this is where this whole secondary thing is coming in. All of this, these patterns can be used in supporting graphics. So you're not just placing the logo and calling it a day. I hope that makes sense. And then we see it over and over in different successful iterations. It's not just, okay, here's a color, here's a logo. It's all sorts of different placement with background patterns, different color palettes. I shouldn't say different color palettes. I should say variations of the same color palette. Here's the color palette right here. Basic color palette. You got the primary colors, the secondary accent color, and then the recurring pattern. That's a background pattern that's been used, and I should say quite successfully. If we zoom in here, you can see, okay, there's that pattern. So it adds another layer of visual interest instead of just, okay, so instead of just a purple background with the logo or welcome, it's got the patterns. So the patterns are kind of forming these recurring geometric kind of shapes. And then over here, we see the same thing. And then we get down into things like the programs and the tickets. And so I just, see what I mean? With the tickets, and then this is a recurring pattern, that half or that semicircle. We see that over and over, right here, 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 here. So you can here. I mean, so you can really see that there's this whole visual library, this visual language that's being created and used consistently over and over. Then that to me is a very successful use of Fifth Element. So I see that you're starting to work that into your sketches, but at this point, I'd really love to see you get quickly into the digital version of really starting to develop this stuff. And so I guess in essence, I would say, in summary, I would say, if you're going to use this logo, I would say, the mechanics is a little off. I would say I would recommend, as I said before, reduce the size of the mark in relationship to the size of the type, and then try to add those rings in there. The rings will create some nice consistent harmony too, because you've got circles in your logo, so it's just going to carry right through. It's going to bring the eye right through like this. It's going to come through and just kind of work its way through in a beautiful way. So I definitely recommend the rings down there. That, and start working on maybe increasing your color palette, and let's get some patterns and let's start working some of your inspiration into your graphics package. Okay, wonderful start. I really love the experimentation here, and I'm okay with you going straight to Sketch instead of, I think that's going to help. It's get your ideas on paper. So at this point, let's start developing digital. All right, great job. Any questions? Let me know. Thanks.